Welcome for another episode of Women Lifting Women, a podcast dedicated to female voices in leadership and tech. My name is Emma Raz, I'm the host, and well, you know me already if you listened to this podcast before. And I'm joined today by Kinga, and I will let Kinga, you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Emma.
Anytime.
So my name is Kinga Ince. I'm a media expert, former media agency executive, and the founder and CEO of Mediaspace.global, which is a professional network for media marketing, technology, and regulatory leaders globally.
That's a lot of things. That sounds quite interesting. I would love to hear more about it. And we chatted before, and I know that some of the work you're doing is connecting people and bringing people together. And one of the challenges has been with representation and having the right mix maybe of people in the room as part of that task. I would love to hear more about the work that you have done to achieve representation, or at least try to, and what are the tactics you have tried, maybe what worked, didn't work, what you want to do next?
Yeah, sure. So it's a very big topic. That's why we'll try to be very short. Representation in the media space, on our platform, is very important because the whole idea is to include different leaders from media, marketing, technology, regulatory spaces, legal spaces. So obviously that's a huge professional representation. And within that, obviously, we have different regions. So that's a task as well to make it really global and really meaningful in terms of having different views. And last but not least, it's important to have some kind of equal gender representation as well, which is probably the most difficult task from all these.
Really? Let's dig into why is it so difficult, and maybe what have you tried to do to try to overcome and to actually achieve some of those, a better representation for gender?
Sure. So I don't know why exactly. We've got a couple of ideas, and I try to figure it out. So I think that's a great, opportunity to be here and to discuss this challenge, because for us, this is obviously a challenge pragmatically in the day-to-day work, but obviously it's a challenge for the representation purposes that we said that we would follow when we started Mediaspace. So just a quick number. When we ask 10 people to speak at one of our events, out of 10, 8 male say yes very, very quickly. And they are happy to come and speak, and basically there is no any issues. Probably the other 2 is just busy and not saying no for other reasons. In case of women, it's the opposite. So if we ask 10 women to speak, it's basically 2 women who is the average to say yes, they are happy to accept the invitation. And it has been from the very beginning when we started in 2020. So we tried to figure out why it is. And I talked to a couple of people. Obviously, I don't know everyone who we asked or invite to speak, but those who shared their views with them, or with us, was they don't have enough time. They are too busy. They don't believe they are the best person who could speak. So it's basically a mix of being very busy and having less motivation or mindset to be visible, and probably also self-confidence issues, because I know about a couple of women that they are brilliant and still they just don't want to speak publicly. So that's probably a big topic on its own.
Those are quite because we're obviously being busy, that's true, but probably the male counterparts are also busy, or they have other priorities or other things to do, but they make public speaking a priority because they know the importance of being seen, or they more into it, like they understand it, and they make the time. And where probably maybe potentially like the female counterparts, maybe that um fear or self-doubt, or more on that self-doubt side, of maybe I'm not the best person, maybe like there are better people than me, why, like, and that's kind of the reason why you would quote, oh, I'm too busy, I have other things, because you're not, one, you don't believe in yourself, or you have that concern that, to put yourself out there, and then that also cause you to under prioritize such activities, and therefore not take advantage of that. It's kind of connected, like, pretty much, like, it's just what I would imagine, because, like, obviously, we're all always very busy, but it's how you're prioritizing different things, and that can differ. um do you think that could be potentially one of the reasons?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the priority
Mhm.
stuff. Um, that's probably a very powerful reason why women say no to such opportunities. But I think those who have family, or
Mhm.
at least one kid, or even if they have more, that's also not just a priority question, but a time question as well, because of the additional workload women have. So I think it's both, but it starts with the priority stuff, because if you prioritize it and say no to one opportunity, then you might say yes to another one when you are more relaxed, or have a little bit more time, or in a different I don't know, phase of your life. But it's more complex, as you just said, that probably self-confidence issues, perfectionism. I think that's also something that many women want to be just totally perfect when they are on stage, and obviously it's hard to achieve. So and also I think that there is a work around that I don't like. I mean, I do public speaking quite a lot, despite many challenges I have, but I don't like, or I'm not confident with speaking about specific topics. Mostly I speak about professional topics, not like this women's stuff, but it's important to me. So obviously I'm very grateful for this opportunity. But sometimes when you get an invitation to speak, it's not totally defined. And there would be an opportunity for women to say that I'm not confident with speaking about this. Could we move it to another angle, or speaking about something like that? And mostly I believe in 80% the organizer would say yes, because that's an interesting angle, what a professional leader say, or said or would say. So it's I don't know, it's I think it's just this mindset stuff, priority question, time concerns, personal, I don't know, motivation. So yeah, it's a complex thing, but it's one of the most important things we need to speak about, I believe, because representation matters, as we know. So that's why we, even if it's much more time to invite equal number of women to a stage, virtual or physical, we do the extra miles, but it's not everyone, or not everyone prioritizes, and that's why it's a slow move. That's what I see.
I mean, it's really interesting because you mentioned prioritization and time, and obviously family, which is a very legitimate, obviously, reason you have to prioritize your family first. But men, often the same men, also have a family. So it goes into like primary caregiver, and how many, the workload, and basically the split within a household, and what does it mean to be a woman who's also working versus a man who's working, a working mother and a working father, and how we as workspaces also provide our own employees the same consideration. So for example, working fathers are legitimate, like we encourage them to take equal part in taking care of their kids. And not, so basically it's all connected to the systematic one. We as workspaces, what we do and how we encourage our employees, and basically the decision we do to ensure that they have the space and the opportunities to take equal responsibility. And of course, the motivation of society and what the society expectations of women and men that also set those I don't know, mindsets or working, like they're all tangled together. If we're looking at society, if we're looking at workspaces, if we're looking at all of that, and they're all tangled together. And the reality is that workspaces were originally defined and kind of almost designed by men. And we recently watched Mad Men. I don't know if you watched the show.
Yeah.
Um, we watched the first season only, and I think after a while I was like, I don't know if I can take this any longer. Because the way that they talk about women and the way that they treat her is just so. I don't. This is hard for me to watch. This is actually, I know it's entertaining, but this is actually hard for me to watch. I don't know how you felt about it.
I really enjoyed that, and I was amazed by how much society has changed since the 60s. But I must tell you a personal story that there are still structures exist which I haven't really recognized before. So when we started Mediaspace, originally we wanted to expand with our cross-media business intelligence tool that's called White Report. So we got to exhibit at Collision in New Orleans. That was before COVID, among other startups. And obviously that was a very new experience. I was as an executive, jumping into the startup environment. So that was very, very, very funny and exhausting and interesting at the same time. But the most important conclusion was that obviously we flew from Europe to America to attend that event. And I met a couple of people, potential investors, and those who were interested in what we did. And most people suggested that I should go to one of the big American accelerators to attend, be there physically for like 3 months, and then I would get a lots of new opportunities, a new network and potential customers and everything. And I was like, okay, I've got 2 little kids. I flew here. It took me, a while to organize this whole trip because my whole family is at home. So there is no way that I leave my family for 3 months just because I have this amazing opportunity, to be part of an accelerator. So I just keep that opportunity. And I was like very, very sad about this, because it was a good, or could have been a good start, but it didn't happen. And when the COVID started, there were quite a few accelerators launched online. And that was very, very, an amazing feeling that we got into one finally. I was able to attend online. My family existed, we lived as happily we could during COVID, and there the opportunity was. So it was like, it's a bit similar to, we are looking at Mad Men and watching how crazy the 60s were, but it's still here. We just don't recognize what those patterns are, which we will be probably laughing in, 20 years, that I was not able to attend this or that. I don't want to make it too long, but you understand, I think. But
I mean, I think even some of the narratives are still there. Maybe they're not allowed to talk about like some of the things as openly, but some of I started working in tech, and the first thing was like booth babes in these events. There are booth babes, and in China there were women parading around wearing really tiny clothes at conferences. And the concept of booth babes existed, and oh, you're the hostess almost. Like there are still things that are expected, subliminal, and we play sometimes parts in it, not always intentionally, but sometimes we just go with those roles that we are expected to fill, and we just automatically assume that we are supposed to do it as well. Some of it's
Right.
good, some of it's bad. I'm not saying it's really black and white, but that's not completely gone. Not really. And I've been on the receiving side a few times of like a lot of inappropriate things that can happen in the industry. And I think that at first, I mean, one being young and everything, I was like really legitimizing all of that. And I thought, like, yes, and dismissed it. And it took me a while to really reconsider and think back and reflect back on past events and say, no, maybe this is not normal and maybe this is not okay. And we should speak up. Um, Mostly because I wouldn't be happy to see anyone in my team, for example, going through this same thing. And if I would never allow women that work for me to go through the same experience, why am I saying it's okay for me to go through it? So that's some things that I started asking myself after when I became a manager, and like late, like, and of course now more and more as I also do the podcast and talk to more women about their experiences, seeing that it's actually much more common. And unless we talk about it, we never know that this is actually a problem and we're not alone. Yeah, I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, I think making certain features or patterns more well known, or being more aware of them, that's probably point one, because otherwise, I mean, there are lots of spontaneous reactions, and as we discussed previously, for quite long, I just didn't care about gender differences. I did what I did. I tried to, achieve my goals, and just went with the flow and didn't care if I was a woman or not. But after some time, and obviously it was external informations, insights, and people talking about specific topics, I just had to recognize that I'm not alone, as you just said, and these things might happen to other people as well, especially to others who are less, ambitious or less direct and ask for less things, or want to achieve less, or want to be less visible. So obviously there is a personality um, background for everyone, where we are coming from, and because it's not hard for me to communicate clearly, it was always an advantage for me. But it's not a very feminine feature, because that's, I don't know why, but women are usually shy and more in the background, and I keep asking things and keep commenting things, and that's just creates some positive noise normally. And that helped me achieve many things that I didn't really want to achieve originally. I just wanted to learn more and stuff like that. And what I wanted to share was that I suppose that might be everyone's own tactics and personality solutions in this case. And for me, what was the best unconscious tactic, which I recognized like decades later, that I try to be very good professionally. And when I was, I think I was 29 when I was promoted to be the number one leader of Universal McCann in Budapest, after a British male. And our clients were like 40 plus marketing directors, French, German, whatsoever, so foreign middle-aged men who just, saw a young girl. I probably didn't even look 29, who they didn't know, and they didn't have any idea what to expect from me, but they didn't expect too much, that's for sure. And when they recognized that I know quite a lot about the market, about the professional stuff, how things go at the agency, we managed them properly. If there is something wrong, then they can call us and we can communicate about that. So once I was part by all this, it was a game changer, because my age or my gender or anything really mattered anymore, because I was equal to them. And originally, when I saw them, there was a very specific moment. I will probably remember this forever, that there was a first meeting with someone after this promotion, and I went in the room, and the guy asked me to bring some coffee. Pretty typical, like I would say pretty standard. And I just said that, okay, I will arrange that, but I'm the new director of Universal American. And he was like, okay, then let's start talking. And it was starting from, not just because of this, but in a very, how to say, deep difficulty in general, because that client wasn't really happy with the agency. Plus, they got me, and I got them. But at the end of the day, we discussed everything transparently. He saw that it's easy to communicate with me. I included the whole team, solved the problems, and we were really knowledgeable and really excellent professionally. So it took a few months, like half a year maybe, sorry. But we managed to convince him, and years later, he just said that we were the most brilliant team in his life as a media agency. So I think that you need to have some power, and you can choose what power you go for. And my solution was being smart and well informed and well networked, and that's how we got exclusive insights and competitive values to him at the end of the day.
For me, I mean, that's a brilliant point, and I think that I've often gravitated towards that. So I think that that's my method of like almost like self-defense, just being the best. Like, I don't know, like bit of a know-it-all. Like, I mean, I obviously strived always to like similar story. Like my first job, actually, I was 25. I was running productions of hardware in Taiwan, and this was my first like I just graduated from my master's, and they hired me because I spoke Chinese. It was my first full job. Everyone was much older than me, my colleagues, and I was running the second largest vendor, and I'm showing up and I'm running this vendor, and everyone is kind of twice my age. I'm like, this is the way I sat down first, like, oh, this is the way I run things, this is the way I like to do things. And obviously, for a vendor, and most of them are men, I'm like, this is the CEO, and it took them a bit, and probably they were like, couldn't really complain too much about it, but it took a bit of adjustment, but we built a really, really good, strong relationship. And my default was also, okay, so I'm just going to be extremely good at my job, and I'm going to show them that I'm like, that they can rely on me, and I will just be the best. However, I've also experienced a situation when I was really doing the best thing, but I probably step on someone's toes, or like part of my like doing the best job was like, and the fact that I was a woman or a younger woman created a different response, or definitely accelerated, maybe, I don't know, or escalated the response from their side. So like I remember coming back from that trip to Taiwan, coming back to the office, notifying the team that there was discrepancies between our American team or vendors in Taiwan and what we were expecting. And that caused communication with the American team, notifying them that like this is happening. And the response was like, what is this like little girl? Like there was the actual email response. And obviously I was shocked, because I never imagined someone could say something like that. This is a workspace. And I was really taught me a lot though, because then I learned to work with that American team really well. So then them relying on me a lot. But I learned that sometimes the way people view you will impact their initial response. Obviously, you can sometimes overcome it, but it just will add more obstacles along the way. And sometimes you can walk into a room and people will expect certain things. It just made me aware of that subjective truth of how you're perceived and the power of perception from day one, because you can also use the power of perception to your advantage. Not everything is possible, but it's definitely something that I've encountered several times, even though I think there's a power to say, oh, I never thought about, oh, because I was a woman, I couldn't do it. I never thought that way. But I learned to recognize there were certain things that people thought that they could tell me or ask me or do to me because I was one. And obviously that's not fair, and it's my job to try to change it. But more than that, it's my job to be fair to me, recognize those and recognize when things are what are my problems and what are other people's problems. And I can just say, like, this is a you thing, not a me thing. And I don't need to take this on board. Thank you very much for your feedback, but no, thank you. That's the power of recognizing that specific subjective truth of how people view you and how that might impact their response. Same as someone asking you to bring the coffee. I think that was brilliantly handled. But obviously, if it was someone else coming in the room, maybe it wouldn't have, like, so how hard women feel like they have to work, how hard we feel like we have to prove ourselves is also a pattern. Let's also connect with that being perfect. And we have to be perfect before we're on stage. And one of my favorite things, I don't prepare too much, just public speaking. I go on stage and I'm somewhat prepared. I like to go in and I'll get it sorted. I'll manage. Because I don't need to be that scared of it. It's not that scary. It's all fine. And
I agree.
yeah, half the time I'm with the dog as well, so she might decide to run around. And like, it's like half the way through a speech, I once started like, no, my dog is leaving. I have to go get her back. So like, and she decided something else was more interesting than like staying on stage. And she was like, no. Need to get the husky back. And there probably is a video of that somewhere. But that's like the power of like you just not demanding that much, like, and just being able to let go and know that perfection will never be achieved, and that's all right, because you're good enough as is. And that's just really liberating. I don't know.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. But I know that for specific people, women, it's not so easy to go on stage or to say anything publicly for very different reasons. Probably you and I are just easier on this, or I used to do folk dancing on stage, and that helped me a lot, that when there is, showtime and you go on stage, you need to be focused. You need to prepare like 1 minute at least before you go on stage to be there in mind. But I'm not an overthinker either in terms of public speaking. I know I want to know what I speak about and key stuff, but I don't like over scripting things. But that's because I have some experience, and I fear that I want to share things with others, and not everyone feels the same. So I understand them, but I still believe that what you are suggesting is to be seen is just a certain barrier that you can just go over, and you can benefit much more of that, and especially learning about yourself and improving is another advantage. But the main thing is that if you are good professionally, I don't think there is any reason anyone should have not to share that publicly. And that's so stupid. Why women are more afraid of this? I just don't get the idea.
I mean,
I
it's
mean,
expectation.
scientifically, I don't understand, but probably there is a
I
reason.
mean, it's expectations. Like, why are women more worried about how they look? There's a lot of expectations that we judge as society. We judge women more harshly. I don't know why is this poor woman naked on the red carpet? There's a whole range of like weird things that are happening to women, which I simply cannot explain. Of
Mhm.
why this, except like why is,
Yeah,
how did our society end up this
you're
way?
right. Yeah.
Um, but that, I mean, we all find different methods, and for me, a lot of the time, fashion, for example, gives me like an armor. I feel if I look, I feel confident, and I
Mhm.
feel like, you know what, this helps me do a whole lot of things that maybe in other circumstances will be intimidating, but I'm now in that character, so completely in that character that I can. Um, Talking about networking, like one of those interviews, one of these interviews, I was told, oh, networking is so easy for you. You're such an outgoing person naturally. And I was like, that's not natural. That's a lot of hard work. There's nothing natural. I'm an introvert naturally. And this was work. So we chatted about networking and the experience you had about the power of networking and how women and men approach networking a bit differently. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, thank you. It's a very, very important topic. So thank you to ask about this. Yeah, I've got this experience personally, and then I try to dig deeper into this. So as I mentioned, read a couple of studies and articles. If there is any difference between how male or female professional networkings go, because that was basically about professional networking, what I was interested in, not personal one. And what these studies found that there is a very big difference between how men and women network in a business or professional environment, which is that men are more transactional. So they got to the point and they ask specific things about business and opportunities or jobs or just surroundings of certain people's company or market trends. So these kind of professional or business related questions, sometimes personal ones, but still not chit chatting about how kids grow and stuff like that, help them to get more opportunities professionally because they connect better to each other. And that's what I experienced as well, that I belong to a couple of different communities, women communities, and obviously professional communities as well. And there are certain circles where women just get together. There are amazing events, amazing opportunities for them to share professional insights or company related information and learn and connect in that way. And they don't use this opportunity. And that's crazy because it's just, it's a vast amount of information that you get, and it's simply mass that if you meet like just 3 people at an event who you share information and get information from, that's new insights. That's what I did and learned in my 20s when I became the director of that professional information is not just the written ones or the facts and figures and stuff like that, but a lots of market insights which are informal information. They are not written down, not because they are necessarily confidential, just because it's not written down. And those information bits are super powerful, so you can build different things on that, but you need to get them. And scientifically, that's the difference between networking, and obviously that's a stereotype because there are great women networkers and stuff like that. So it's just making a personal connection, but speaking about professional topics as well, because you can never know when something important happens, and sometimes nothing important is happening. You just feel good, ideally. I do. I like connecting with people at a limited time, but when I'm there, I really enjoy that, and I think that's very important. That it's not a must. You should just go out when you are okay with that and happy with that, because you need your energy and everything. So if you don't have any, you shouldn't share them. Or obviously it depends on your personality, because if you are an extrovert, obviously that energizes you to meet new people, while for introverts I think that's the opposite. So it's a bit complicated, but I don't think forced networking makes sense. That's what I'm going to say. But it's scientifically proven that business networking or professional networking has huge advantages if you do that properly, and that can still be personal. So I think that's one of the messages that we just can't tell enough.
I mean, I think that one, even as an introvert, and I consider that I'm an introvert, I think a few people in my companies are introverts as well. And we also network, and it's mostly of mine, we got used to it. So one, it's about getting used to it. My husband is also a bit of an introvert. So we go to this event and I'm like, so he's in the film industry and I go to events with him. He's like, oh, I want to talk to this one. I was like, okay, cool, go. And I literally would push him into the middle of a group and was like, hey, that's it. I will basically do the How I Met Your Mother. Have you met Ted? Kind of situation. It's like, have you met? Because I had to learn that everyone is awkward in this situation sometimes, and you have to kind of go with it, and you have to push through, and nobody ever feels particularly always comfortable to begin with. It's about getting that ball started, and it becomes easier with time. And you find things that help you kind of manage or get used to the situation, and it's a habit. So even if you think, oh, I'm not good at it, or I'm not comfortable with that, it's a skill. It's not something that you're always have to be born with. So even introverts can learn that skill. I mean, I know a few people that are proof to that. If I'm excluding myself from that list, it's definitely something. And even my husband, again, he's been learning and getting used to it and becoming more and more comfortable in those environments. Because it's something that, like anything else, is something you learn with time. So if you've never done it, it looks really scary. Also helped, the dog really helps, but I can't always bring her along. The dog is the greatest thing. Dog is my superpower, really.
Is he opening conversations, or in what way? We've got cats, so I don't know.
If you want to bring it, okay, so imagine we're in Cannes, we're on a yacht, networking, and one, I'm wearing a ball gun and a crown, and second, I have a husky next to me, which is kind of like a small wolf. How many people ran to me and oh my God, who are you? And I don't know how many people I've met. People have tried to scan my dog because there's a URL code on the tag. She has a name tag. People have taken pictures of the dog. I brand Aurora, adding my company brand on top of put a bandana on her with a company brand. And people come and ask to pet her, and we start having conversation. People take photos of me walking. Infinite amount of things the dog has done. So the dog is our definitely number 8 secret weapon. And also, imagine you're in an event, you come back, people say, oh, I think we've met. I'm like, have you seen a dog? They're like, yeah, I'm the person with that. Why? Because you go to a conference in tech, there's many humans, there's only one husky normally on the ground. So you don't forget easily. And the trick with networking events or anything else is be memorable. So half the thing is not the fact that you spoke to people. Yes, you need to learn from it, but they're going to get a lot of emails probably. Most of the trick is for you to be remembered. So it's not always about how many conversations you had. If you had the right conversation, then they remember you, and now you can work together. So for me, that has been a really powerful method. Aurora is one. There's a few others. Of just being memorable, because being too normal is not always a good thing. You wanna, I know this is a time to play it big.
Yeah, it's not a differentiating thing, that's for sure, to be just normal and average. Yeah, and I just wanted to add to this networking topic that there are very different cultural patterns in different countries, I found. And obviously there are more social countries. UK is one of them, in my understanding. The CE region is not that, people are friendly, but not in a networking way friendly. And I started to love this networking thing when I met a couple of people in London, complete strangers, and we just shared a few things, what they do, and they just said a couple of tags or keywords about them. And it was like with some people, we didn't have any common tags, so we just moved along. But there were one or two people per event where our tags were very similar, and we started to talk, and it became very, very deep with some of them, and we found extremely many common grounds and a very, very deep understanding. It was like we knew each other for, I don't know, long time, after the first meeting. And that's what I love about networking, that it can be, no match at all, but sometimes if you find the right people, that's really life-changing. And then it's just moved so quickly how we could collaborate and, we have a coffee or explore ideas together. So I just really love having this opportunity, and it's not happening all the time, but the opportunity itself is just amazing, and it doesn't happen without networking or contacting people.
I think that's a wonderful piece of advice, and it's very, very, I mean, it's always very true. You can't, if you don't have the conversation, you'll never know, right? And I think it's a wonderful way to also conclude and come to like the one piece of advice. Go out there, put yourself out there, try to have conversations. You never know what will come from that opportunity. I don't know if that's a good summary of your advice.
Absolutely. At Mediaspace, we say something like every business, every collaboration starts with a conversation. So it's absolutely brilliantly said by you. Thank you so much.
Amazing. And I think that comes to our podcast to an end. So thank you so much, our viewers, listeners, anyone else. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next podcast. And thank you so much, Kinga, for joining me today, for joining us for this episode and many more. Please go to www.womenliftingwomen.io, and I'm looking forward to next time.
Thank you, Emma. It was wonderful talking to you.